So welcome, good afternoon to our career workshop series. We're very happy to resume our series after the break we took during the summer. Um, oops. Today we have our workshop is about interview skills. Our guest speaker is Gail Lewis. Thank you so much, Gail, for being with us today. We're very happy to have you. In case you're not familiar with our organization, the Center for the Women of New York helps women, helps women overcome financial violence, social wellness, and legal issues by raising awareness and advocating for full gender equality for women, understanding their needs, and connecting them with CWNY services, nonprofit partner organizations, and public resources to aid, uplift, and address their challenges. We do have two locations. One is in Queensboro Hall, and the other one is in Bayside, in Fort Johnson Park. Our services are referrals and advocacy programs. So if you don't know if we offer a service that you need, reach out and we will, if we don't have a service, we'll refer you to the right place for you to get the help that you need. We have financial literacy workshop series every third Wednesday of the month, career workshop series like this one. We have two kinds of support groups. One is for women in crisis and the other one is for caregivers. We do have tax preparation, one-on-one assistance in March and April. We have in-person gardening and sustainability workshops on Thursdays and now on Saturdays. Conversational ESL classes, legal support team that's via email. So you have an inquiry, we'll respond to you via email. Yoga classes in our Fort Johnson location in person, and self-esteem monthly workshops. If you would like to watch any of our virtual events, virtual workshops, webinars, you can find them on our website in the URL that you're seeing. Your questions will be addressed. So if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the queue. We're going to use the Q&A feature. So please make sure that you write them there. If you did dial in, if you're hearing this over the phone, you can email your questions to events@cwny.org. And our volunteer, Lana Berlutz, will be monitoring the email and will let us know what questions you have. They will be addressed at the end by Gail. And now, Gail, thank you again so much for being with us. Feel free to introduce yourself, and we're so looking forward to hearing all the tips and information you have about interview skills.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. Good morning, and good morning to everyone. It is my pleasure to be here this morning. It's still morning. It's afternoon. It's after 12. It's my pleasure to be here this afternoon to present this seminar interactive workshop to you today. So we'll get started with a PowerPoint presentation. Our presentation today is on how to ace your job interview. And it is an interactive workshop. So at the end of the workshop, you will have a chance to answer interview questions. And during the workshop, if you have any questions at all, please put them in the Q&A so I can answer them along the way. So let's get started. This today is how to ace your job interview. Sometimes we find ourselves either in a position that we don't like, in a job we don't really care for, or in a job where we know we could do better at a different job, or maybe we find ourselves unemployed and we need to go out and get a job. Or maybe there's a career field that we've always been interested in, and we'd like to try to change industries or change jobs for that reason. Whatever the situation, whether you're starting out new or you've been in the workforce for a very long time, knowing how to interview well is very important. And that's the impetus behind today's interactive workshop. I'm Professor Gail Lewis, and I teach at CUNY right in Queens. And this presentation is made possible by the Center for the Women of New York. So I'd like to start by shouting them out for all the great work that they do in our communities. So let's get started. Who gets hired and who gets ahead? Well, the people who get ahead and the people who get hired are usually people with excellent credentials, people with education or certain experience. Additionally, the people who get ahead or get hired are the people who perform. Those are the people who on the job are bringing in a lot of money. Maybe they're in sales, or maybe they perform well on annual reports. Additionally, the people who get hired and the people who get ahead are the people who present themselves well, the people who do well on interviews and then do well on the job. So ask yourself this question: what do you have agency over? Unfortunately, none of us have control over hiring managers or people like that at work, but we do have control over our interviewing skills. Just like learning to roller skate or learning how to cook, interviewing for a job is a skill that we can learn, practice, improve, and even master. So think about any skill that you've learned, whether it be knitting or how to drive or roller skating. When you first started doing it, or even how to ride a bike, when you first started doing it, you probably didn't do it very well, but with practice, you got really better. And maybe you even became an expert. And that's the same idea behind interviewing for a job. Practice, preparation makes perfect. So even if you're not that great at it right now, you can learn the skills and you can even master them. And anyway, if you're going out on a job interview, think about it this way. You should feel confident. Getting a job interview means that based on your application and based on your resume, the hiring manager already thinks that you're a good fit for the position. So have some confidence from the very beginning. Now, all you need to do is seal the deal by acing your interview. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to examine interview skills by looking at 3 different areas. First, prepping for the interview. Second, looking at some common interview questions. And then third, looking at how to practice for your interview. So let's get started by talking about interview prep. Just like anything that you do in life, you want to be prepared. So the best way to start preparing is by researching the company. Do some research on the company, and that's the first step to a successful job interview. Read the LinkedIn and the social media pages of the company that you are interviewing with to kind of get a feel for the company. Where are their locations? How much business do they do? Find out some more about the company through LinkedIn and also through all of their social media. Next, look up the company website and specifically go to the About Us page. On that page, you'll find a lot more specifics about the company and maybe even get an inkling, a hint about the corporate culture. You can cite facts that you find online on the social media and on LinkedIn and also on their website. All of those facts that you find, you can cite them or talk about them in your interview. If you say things like, I read on LinkedIn or I saw on your corporate website, on your interview, it shows that you are interested in the job because you've been doing research on the company and you're interested in working there. This same research that you're doing can also help you formulate a question or two to ask the interviewer, because interviewers love to ask as their last question, do you have any questions for me? So use this research to formulate a question or two about the company that you can ask the interviewer at the end of the interview. So you see, researching the company is vital to being to excelling on a job interview. So make sure you scour, you're on social media anyway. So use your time wisely and look up the company that you're going to interview for, and also look up their website. So after you research the company on LinkedIn, social, and also online, research the position. What you'll do is review, oops, sorry about that. What you'll do is you'll review the job description, determine what the company is seeking in the candidate for that position. So when you are applying for jobs, you see a little job description that's posted. Take a screenshot of that job description, because you're going to want to go back and you're going to want to look at that job description and determine what they're looking for in a candidate. They might say, we're looking for a self-starter who is motivated. So make sure that you make a list of every qualification that the company wants, and then make a list of your own assets to match those job requirements. So first, look at the job description, make a list of the skills, the knowledge, the professional and the personal qualities that they require, and then make a list of your own assets that match those job requirements. When you are making your list of your assets, include all of the skills, the qualities, the certifications, your experiences, your qualifications, your abilities, computer skills, app skills, and knowledge bases that you have. You're going to use this list of your qualities and your assets when answering questions about your assets and answering questions about why you are an excellent fit for the job. So this list is very important. If you're anything like me, it's a challenge for me to sit down and make a list of my positive attributes. It almost seems kind of foreign. So I know it's a challenge to do something like this, but you've got to do it, and you've got to sit down and just be honest and make your list. Think about qualifications that you have. Think about certifications you might have had. Think about knowledge bases that you have. I used to, in college, I worked at one pet store, and I worked there for a long time, and I just didn't care for that particular store. So after working at that store, there was an opening at another pet store. And so I went to that pet store and I talked about my knowledge base. That's all of the knowledge that I had acquired at the first job about pets, about pet food, about pet toys, all of those things. And I wowed them on the interview about how I have this knowledge base about pets. And I got hired at the second pet store, making more money. So I was thrilled, and it was a much nicer environment. I really enjoyed that store a lot more. So what I'm saying here is you might take it for granted that you have knowledge bases like that. Add those to your list. Those are definitely assets in getting hired. And even if you're changing industries, so let's say right now you're a salesperson at Macy's, and let's say that you want to go, you are interviewing for a job as an administrative assistant. Don't think that because those two jobs are different, that you can't talk about your knowledge base from sales. Think about it. As a salesperson, you have to be good with people. Anyone who's worked in a store knows you've got to be good with people. You have to have a lot of product knowledge. You have to be very adaptable if you work at a store. And those are skills that you can use no matter what industry you go into next. So even if you're applying to a job that's in a completely different field, like let's say you're applying for a job as an administrative assistant, use make a list of those assets that you got from that first job that you can apply to the second job. So never count yourself out. You have a lot more experience, you have a lot more product knowledge, you have a lot more qualifications than you might think. The key is just sitting down and making the list. So now that we've looked at researching the company and researching the position, let's look at how to prep your dress. That is what you should wear. You really want to aim to look professional. Always have an interview outfit ready. So always just have an outfit that you can put on and go to an interview. So you never have to think about what you're going to wear. Something that you feel confident in is what your interview outfit should be. Excuse me. It should be neat. It should be tidy, and you should be well groomed to present a positive image on your interview. And if you have a lot of bangs or hair in your face, just pull your hair back for your interview. That way your interviewer can see your whole face and you appear more credible if they see your whole face. When it comes to makeup and accessories, think about just using everyday makeup and everyday accessories. You want to try and stay away from makeup and hair and accessories that you might wear out to a club or that you might wear to a wedding. Just keep it simple. Also, if interviewing online, like we're online right now, wear bottoms. Don't wear a blazer or a dressy top or look professional on the top with pajama bottoms or shorts on the bottom. Make sure that you're wearing proper bottoms, whatever it is, slacks, a skirt, whatever. But just make sure that you are not wearing pajama bottoms. You're not wearing shorts on the bottom. You know, just in case for some reason or the other, you have to stand up. I was on a call the other day and a gentleman was on the call and he was wearing a crisp white shirt that had a perfectly ironed shirt. And it was bright white. And he was wearing, you could tell he took some time in ironing the shirt. He was wearing a great bow tie. And then at one point, he just kind of stood up and I saw that he was wearing yellow shorts. So the moral of the story here, if you're on an important call, wear pants. Make sure you're wearing something that's appropriate on the bottom. So now that we've prepped your dress, you've also got to prep your tech. So prep your tech for online interviews. Most interviews now take place online on Zoom or other platforms like Teams. So make sure that you have everything that you need for an online interview. Check your camera and check your microphone in advance. If you're using your phone to connect to Zoom or another online platform, make sure that you're not holding your phone in front of you. Make sure that you prop your phone up against something so that it does not move, okay? Because you don't want to be holding your phone in front of you because you're gonna move it. Your friends are gonna be texting you or something. You'll get distracted if you're holding it. So just make sure that you put it down on something stationary and prop it up well. So check your camera and your microphone in advance. Your camera should be at eye level. So you don't want your camera down so low so that you're seeing a double chin. And you don't want your camera up so high that someone's looking up your nose. You try and make sure that your camera is right at eye level with you. And then for eye contact, practice looking into your camera when speaking. Especially when you're on Zoom, and I'm going to do it right now, especially when you're on Zoom, it's really easy to just kind of start to want to look at everybody who's online, look at their pictures and their names, but fight the urge. Instead of looking at the pictures, look at the camera when you're on a job interview online, not the boxes and the people in the screen. When you're looking at the camera, you are maintaining eye contact. Also, tidy up your background. Especially, let's say you're in a bedroom, make sure that the bed is made, or at least things are moved outside of camera view. Secure your pets so they're not running around. If you're in a room with a door, close the door. Make sure that you tell everyone in your household, I'm going to be on a job interview for, so for an hour, just try not to come in this room. I'm going to close the door. If it's noisy, I know that usually when I'm sitting next to a window, you can hear the traffic. My neighbors have very loud mufflers, and when they are driving around, you can hear that muffler sound. So sometimes I just try and move away from the windows when I'm online on an interview. And then if it is just very loud where you are, sometimes it just happens. There's nothing that you can do about it. Just use the mute button when you're not talking. So when the interview is speaking, just use that mute button. And then when you get ready to answer questions or to speak, unmute yourself. That'll cut down on a lot of the noise that they hear as well. Try to use a plain wall behind you. If you don't have a wall behind you that you can use, just use one of the filters or the background filters that are on Zoom or any of the platforms, or blur your background. Blur is really great if your background is messy. However, be careful with blur, because even though your background might be blurred so people can't see the mess in the background, at least with me, I usually blur when there's a mess in the background, or just can't see whatever is going on in the background, they can still see motion. So if someone walks behind you and you are on blur, people will see that person walking behind you. So if you're using blur, just make sure that it's in a situation where none of your kids or your pets or people are walking behind you. People will see them, so be careful. If you can, light in front of you. So just drag a lamp over and put it in front of you. That way the light will shine on your face and you'll look awake and alive. And if you have a window, try and position yourself so that the window is in front of you, not behind you, for the same reason. And one of the best things about interviewing online is you can have your resume, you can have notes, everything right in front of you. So make sure you do have that list of your assets clearly in front of you, have your resume in front of you. Any notes that you might need, have them with you while you're on the interview. And lastly, turn off your chimes. So on your cell phone, whatever you've got going on, make sure that you silence them so that you don't hear those things in the background either. And so that's how you prep your tech for an online interview. So now that we've looked at preparation for an interview, how to prep, let's deep dive into interview questions. Remember that list of assets that you made when you were prepping for an interview? Well, you're going to use that asset list, that list of skills, professional and personal qualities that you possess. You're going to use that list when answering questions about yourself and answering questions about your background. So you see how important preparing by making that list of your assets and attributes really is. So you're going to take that asset list and it's going to help you when you are answering questions. So one of the first questions that you'll get on any job interview is this one: tell me about yourself. And this seems to be the question that so many people struggle with, either because they haven't prepared, or maybe they prepared and just didn't give this question the time that it deserves. As the first question, this is your question, your opportunity to shine. That list of your attributes, your product knowledge, your training, any certifications that you have, all of the job experiences that you have, that list of your assets, you're going to use that in shining with this question. when you hear the question, tell me about yourself, or tell me briefly about your background, you're going to weave a story of what makes you the best person for this job, couched in the story of your professional background, your education, and the special story that only you can tell. This is your opportunity to talk about all of the special things that you bring to the job site. Are you bilingual? Maybe you speak Haitian Creole, or maybe you read Spanish. These are really important assets. Make sure that you mention them when someone says, tell me about yourself. Are you changing fields? Like I said before, maybe you worked in sales at Macy's, and now maybe you're interviewing for a job as an administrative assistant. So if you're changing fields in this question, you want to take some of those assets that you have from your first position and talk about how they're going to be assets in your second position. So as a sales professional, you had to be good with people. As a sales professional, you had to be very adaptable to change. Talk about those assets in your about yourself question and apply them to the position that you're applying for. Maybe you can tell a story about a particular instance in your life, like how you first became interested in accounting. If you're going for a job in accounting, you might tell the story about how you first became interested in accounting. Maybe you're going for a job in the nursing or the medical field. Was there an event in your life that pointed you in the direction of nursing? Think about it. Maybe there was a nurse who took especially great care of your godson, and you never forgot that. Maybe talk about that, how that was one of the reasons why you wanted to go into this field. So whatever that event is, talk about it. Let's say you took a class or you had a mentor who piqued your interest in a particular field. Talk about that person. I know when talking about this question personally, I attended Hofstra University, and I remember as a very small child, one time we took a long car ride out to Long Island, and we went past Hofstra University, and I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. And I remember to this day just looking up and seeing the Hofstra sign with the gold lettering and saying, oh, I want to go there. And no one in my family had been to college, and it was just just something you say, I guess, as a child. But I did. When I went for an interview for that school, I told that story and I got into the school. So the long story here is, or the short story here is that if you have a story to tell, weave it into this question. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your background. It will make you the candidate that they remember after the interview. So now that we've looked at this question, let's move on to the next one. What is your work style? Employers want to know how you work best and if you are a team player. So they ask you this question, what's your work style? So you've already done some research on the company. So you know whether more of an independent worker is needed or maybe more teamwork is needed. So then using your own experience, craft a story about how you work. Maybe talk about a situation where you had to really dig in with team members to get a job done. Or maybe there was a situation where you had to handle a project all on your own. So using your experience, craft a story about your own work style. In addition to this question, two other popular questions are, how do you keep organized? And do you prefer working as a team or independently? So the first question, how do you keep organized? This is very important. Employers do not want to hire people who are not organized. So you want to create a story of the tools that you use to stay organized. So if there are any apps that you use to keep yourself organized, drop their names. It'll show that it's important to you to be organized. And it will also show that you stay abreast of emerging work tools, that you stay current. Additionally, maybe you don't use apps to keep yourself organized. Maybe you've helped someone else get organized. So let's say your sister moved, and when she moved into her new apartment, you helped her organize her apartment. So these are excellent stories that you can tell about organization. During the pandemic, I reorganized my closet by color. So that's the sort of thing that I would talk about on a job interview. If they asked me about how I keep organized, I would say, during the pandemic, I had some time where we couldn't leave, our house. And so I organized my closet by color. And I found that it helps me stay organized. I found that it's a big time saver. I found that it just eases any stress of getting dressed or finding things. So I use that as an organizational tool. I would talk about that on a job interview. Add all of these things to your story. The next question, do you prefer working as a team or do you prefer working independently? Research, again, the work culture and create a story of how you work best and how either way you will add value to the job. So those are two really important questions that are asked. How do you stay organized? Excuse me. And do you prefer working as a team or more independently? So there are a lot of questions that get asked on a job interview, but the long story here is this: do not fib. Whatever your answer, do not be dishonest. It's really, really tempting on a job interview if your potential employer asks you if you have a certain skill, or maybe if you know maybe you speak Spanish, but you don't read Spanish. And they ask you, do you read Spanish? And you might want to lie. Or maybe they might ask you, can you use Microsoft Excel? That's a work tool. And maybe you'll say, oh, yeah, I use it all the time, but you might not really know what it is. Don't lie. Be honest. If an interviewer asks you about a skill or an ability that you don't have, don't lie. Instead of lying, the better thing to do is highlight that you like learning new skills. So I don't know Microsoft Excel, but I look forward to the opportunity of learning it because I really enjoy learning new computer skills. That's a much better answer than lying. Also, in a question where you might be tempted to lie, highlighted that you're excited to be in a new field. So let's say you have no experience in the field that you are interviewing for. Just highlight the fact that you're excited to be new to this field. Maybe this is the type of job that you've been searching for, this type of opportunity you've been searching for a long time, and you are eager to learn more about the field. That is a much better answer than lying and say that you have the skills when you don't, because that's the type of lie that catches up with you on the job site. So it's much better to just be honest and turn your lack of a skill or your lack of an ability into a plus by saying something like, I'm eager to learn those skills, than lying. Lying is not a good road here. So try not to do it. So don't do it. So those are some interview questions. So now that we've looked at first how to prep, and then second, we looked at how to answer questions. Next, let's look at practicing. As with anything, practice is going to make you get better. So how do you practice for a job interview? Well, rehearse. Rehearse at home by yourself or enlist a family member or a friend. Write down some interview questions on cards or on paper, and then write the answers on the back and give them to your friend or your family member and have them ask you those questions. If you don't have anyone to rehearse with, rehearse by yourself. Put your phone in front of you and practice answering the questions and record yourself so you can see what you look like when you're answering the questions. But whatever it is, you've got to rehearse. Use notes or use flashcards to assist you, and have a dress rehearsal. So once you've rehearsed a few times, have a dress rehearsal. Get dressed in whatever it is you're going to wear to your job interview and set it up like a real interview. Answer the questions. Make sure that the interview lasts a half an hour or an hour so that you can really feel like you're on a job interview. Also, record yourself answering those questions and watch them if you have no one else to help you. Something else that's important is make sure that when you're asked a question that you verbally say yes or no, and don't just use nonverbals like instead verbally say yes or no. And that's something that, because we do so much texting and because we do so many things that are not verbal on our phones, we text, we email, but especially texting and chatting on our phones, we have a tendency just to use shrugs or head nods instead of saying yes or no. So when you are on a job interview, just to show that you are engaged in what's happening and what's going on, make sure that you use verbal cues. So when asked a question, a yes or no question, say yes or say no. Try and stay away from just shrugging or nodding your head. And that just shows you that shows the interviewer that you are engaged in what's happening. So practice is really important. On the day of your interview, drum roll, please. So if you're going to an interview that's in person, arrive about 15 minutes early. If you get there longer, if you get there like half an hour earlier or something, just go to whatever is nearby. If there's a Starbucks nearby or something, just go there and sit down and just review your notes and just calm your nerves. Just sit quietly for a little while. If you arrive before 15 minutes before your interview, you want to arrive 15 minutes early. That gives you time to announce yourself, get into the building, get into the waiting room, and just be settled before your interview time. Also, if you are interviewing online, you want to log in 10 minutes before, and that gives you time to check your camera and also to check your microphone and your levels. Remember, again, on interview day, whether you're walking in for an interview or logging on for an interview, turn your phone ringer, any chimes or messaging, turn all of that off. Also, remember to breathe. Breathing is a good thing. A couple of deep breaths are going to relax you. So make sure that you breathe. Remember your posture when you're sitting either online or in front of an interviewer. Good posture makes you seem confident. So make sure that you have good posture. Sit up straight, shake hands, and make eye contact. If you are in person, when you meet the person who's interviewing or the people who are interviewing you, make sure that you shake all of their hands and look them in the eye when shaking. And then during the interview, make sure that you maintain eye contact with the people asking questions. And then lastly, after your interview, send a quick thank you email to whoever interviewed you. And it can be something as simple as, thank you for taking the time to interview me today. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Sincerely, your name. It can be just those 3 sentences, just to follow up. That kind of puts you ahead of other people if you send a thank you email, because it reminds them of who you were. So let's say that something happened during the interview and you told a story about um, changing industries. You might mention that in your thank you email. You might say, I'm excited to take everything that I've learned as a sales associate at Macy's and transfer those skills into this job. I'm looking forward to hearing from you soon. So if you do something like that, that reminds them who you were on the interview, which is a great thing. So send a thank you email. It's really important after your job interview. And like I said, it can be something as simple as just a few lines. So now the best part, we can practice. Today we learned how to ace our job interviews. We learned 3 things: how to prep, how to answer questions, and then effective practice. Now we're going to take some time to practice interview questions. I'll ask that you raise your hand to practice answering, and then I'll give you some feedback. If you are answering a question, try to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. I also wanted to say thank you so much for this opportunity, and keep in touch. I'm Professor Gail Lewis from Queensborough Community College, CUNY. My email address is on the screen. And if you find that you really that interviewing is really a challenge for you because you're nervous about going on job interviews, or you just don't know what to say, I would suggest that you find a Toastmasters club near you. You can look up Toastmasters at toastmasters.org. Toastmasters is an international not-for-profit, and they are just dedicated to helping people excel on job interviews, become better public speakers, and just be more confident in their everyday communication. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, go to toastmasters.org and find a club near you. There are clubs everywhere. And there's also clubs online. So even if you don't want to go somewhere, just join a club online. And also, I'd like to thank the Center for the Women of New York. CWNY does so many great workshops and does so many great classes for all of us here in Queens. So I'd like to thank, and beyond, I'd like to thank them. So we're going to start with our job interview questions. We're going to practice. So the very first question is going to go to Cecilia. And then after we see how she answers a question, everyone else can take turns answering questions as well. So Cecilia, here is your interview question. Could you tell me about yourself and describe your background?
Thank you so much, Gail. Like, there's so many tips that are so important for us. Sure, I'll respond to the question. So my name is Cecilia Reynosa Weigel. I am from Argentina. Therefore, I do speak Spanish. I'm bilingual. I studied communications at home for a year and a half. Then I came to the United States to learn English, thinking that I would be here for 6 months. And then life circumstances made me make the decision of staying here. I worked as a nanny. I love children, and I worked as a nanny and a tutor for 5 years while I was doing my training to be a Spanish interpreter. So I got a certificate for medical, legal, and community interpreting. I work in many diverse environments, including interpreting for the president of El Salvador and the president of Guatemala when dealing with U.S. banks to get loans. I interpreted at schools, and many schools and workshops for education. And then while I was working on that, I became a mom of my 3 children. They, when they were 2, they all started a bilingual school 2 days a week, and I really fell in love with the not only the fact that they were growing up bilingual, but being bicultural. The school was a great opportunity for them to learn how and we live in Latin America, so that felt really connected to my roots, and I thought it would give them a big opportunity for them. Because I have a passion for children, and I studied volunteering because I was a mom. I wanted to raise them, but I couldn't not work, so I studied volunteering for a couple of nonprofits. One of them is the Center for the Women of New York. I am passionate about gender equality, and I do have three girls, so I want to contribute to that gender equality, and that's why I love what I do. And I also volunteer for an organization that's called the Young Center for Immigrant Children. So I advocate for them, for the children to be reunited with their families when they have been separated. And if not being reunited with their families, because for some reason that's not the safest option for them, I try to help them find whatever is their best interest to be safe and in a healthy environment. I am passionate about children and languages and cultures, so I think I would be a great fit for this dream position of working in a Spanish immersion school. And I hope you consider me. Thank you for the opportunity.
Wow, thank you so much, Cecilia. Well done. You did so many things well there.
Thank
You talked about specifically to that job. So you talked about it's at a school, you talked about your own children, bilingual, immersion, culture. You hit all of those in your story. So you did a really great job. And that's exactly the type of answer that you want to give on a job interview. You want to make sure that the story that you tell for this question has a great beginning, middle, and end, like yours did. At the very end, you kind of recapped everything that you said. So that was wonderful. In the story, weave together how your skills, your training, and your passion for the job type combined with your experience make you a great fit. And that's exactly what you did. Well done, Cecilia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail. Thank you for making me think about what my dream job would be.
Yay. Oh, I'm glad that you did. How do you deal with pressure or stressful situations?
Well, I hope not to run into too many stressful or, situations that would make me feel pressured. I think one of the things that I have to keep in mind is time management, right? To try to keep myself on track so that I do not become overwhelmed. And I also believe that I should have a professional relationship with my superior, whether that's my manager or my director. In any event that I do feel stressed or overwhelmed, to know that I can come to them and try to work out the ways that, we can come to an agreement on some ways to, you know, manage my time better or, find some resources if there are things happening outside of the job that I may be dealing with that, I may need to counsel someone other than my supervisor.
Well done, Rachel. Thank you. You answered that question very well. You talked about communicating with your boss, communicating with other people to get other assistance, and that's really what your employer wants to hear. Your potential employer. That's exactly what they want to hear. They want to hear that you are a problem solver. They want to hear that you communicate well when you're under stress, and they want to make sure that you stay calm under pressure. You shared a perfect story about how you would communicate, and that's what they want to hear. You want to share a story about how you remained calm, how you communicated. And even if you do other things, like let's say you talked about outside resources, that's perfect. Maybe you meditate, or maybe you attend yoga classes at CWNY, whatever those things that you do. And by the way, the yoga classes are free if you haven't tried them. So if you do things like that, mention those as well. So you did a great job. Thank you so much for volunteering. Are there any volunteers for the next question? How about I put it up on the screen and that way you can see it? What did you do in the last year to improve yourself or your knowledge? What did you do in the last year to, oh, Rachel, go ahead. It's all yours.
Last year, I took it upon myself to enroll in some professional development courses. So on the weekends, I would Google search anything to do with resume writing or interviewing skills. Coursera is a great resource, by the way. LinkedIn Learning is a great resource. And so, coming from HR, I wanted to kind of take those refreshers to kind of keep the gears in my brain going. Learning is a constant thing. It never stops. You can never have too much knowledge of one thing. So I've taken about 4 resume refreshers, and it's also good when you complete it to put those kind of things on your resume. So I hope you can see reflected on my resume that I'm still continuously learning.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Great job. Well done. That's exactly the type of answer that that employers are looking for. So you did a great job there. You talked about how you take resume refreshers and how you are trying to keep your knowledge base and keep your skills current. And that's exactly what they want to hear. Employers want to know how you use your time. You're attending this class today. Talk about interactive workshops that you've attended at CWNY. You've attended other classes. You've taken Coursera courses. Those are all great to mention. Mention how you're always looking to improve upon your professional and personal development skills through classes here at CWNY, maybe classes at the Queens Public Library or other organizations. These organizations have excellent reputations, and so they really add to your credibility as a learner. So well done. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you, everyone who helped out with those questions. Cecilia and Rachel, you guys are hired. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail.
So thanks, everyone, for joining us today for Ace Your Job Interview. Please keep in touch. I'm Professor Gail Lewis. My email is on the screen for you. And also big shout out also to CWNY. Thanks for having me today for this webinar. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gail, so much. We appreciate you presenting with that, like through CWNY. See what's in the chat. Lana, thank you so much for sharing that on the chat. For everyone, you have some links that are important. We did mention the programs before, so I won't bore you. But check out our website, CWNY.org. You'll find all the programs that we have there. If you'd like to become a member, all the events that we do that are paid, like fundraisers and suggested donations for programs that are cheaper for members, the membership is only $25 a year. If you would like to support our mission, are able and want to donate, you can also find that on our website, CWNY.org. And as I said before, we do have 2 locations, one in Queensboro Hall in Kew Gardens, one in Fort Totten Park, which is in Bayside, Queens. If you can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and our podcast. And you can also find all that on our website. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We hope, we'll have this career workshop series every first Tuesday at noon, like today. So I hope you can continue to attend and take a lot of knowledge from Gail and our other wonderful presenters like her. Have a great afternoon, everyone. And again, thank you so much, Gail. You have been wonderful.
Thanks for the opportunity. Have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See you next month or at another program. Bye.